Shalom, shalom, beloved viewers and subscribers. We're here again, the Nazarene of Yahuwah. We've missed you so much, but we decided that not even the aftermath of a hurricane is going to keep us from trying to complete these lessons. This lesson is packed with a lot of information. I will attempt to see how much I can make it as short as possible. Nevertheless, we do not want to compromise the integrity of what is presented. So we're here, lesson 26, the rebranded Learn Yahudyth with the Nazarene of Yahuwah series. For those who may be wondering why Learn Yahudyth is the new name, we invite you to watch lesson 25, and I expound on the reason for the renaming of the series. Nevertheless, let's get into our lesson. Just to say that this lesson we will look somewhat surface level at various what we would know in English as pronouns, so personal pronouns, demonstrative pronouns, independent possessive pronouns, interrogative pronouns or question words, relative pronouns, a few suffixes, prepositions, conjunctions. What we want is for you to be able to not only say a word or two, but to get to the point where you're able to make full or complete statements, ask questions, respond. So in essence, conversational Yahudyth. We're very excited to hear from those who would have expressed how these lessons have been helping them. And we say Toda Rabbi Yahuwah for allowing us to be able to do this. Nevertheless, let's get into lesson 26.
Let's begin.
So we begin first with personal pronouns. And what you will see from some of these slides or whiteboard slides, I have placed the Paleo script or the middle script with the modern script simply because a number of persons learning the language would only have access to the modern script, and so they would not readily or may not readily be able to make the correlation, though we encourage everyone to watch all the letters, the lessons with the letters, so you see the various transitions of how the letters were changed in form. So I have deliberately placed on some of these whiteboard slides both the Paleo or middle script and the modern script of the language, so that you're able to see what the Paleo letters correlate to in the modern square script. So we have here the first word. So we're looking at the Paleo, the modern script, the transliteration, which means what letters in our modern English language are directly related to the letters represented in Yahudyth. And then, of course, what's the translation in English? So to say I, we may say ani or anaki. Ani or anaki. I will pause again to say this, that a number of the words we will look at in the various slides are from biblical or ancient scriptural usages. So whilst there are some persons who may know of modern words that are used, you may find that these modern words are not the ones we refer to in this lesson. Some ancient words do remain the same even in the modern context, while there are others which were added much later. So the first word, if you're saying I, ani, or anaki. Next, we have you, masculine, atha, atha. Then we have you, feminine, ath, ath. Now, there are some words, though they may now have masculine or feminine variations, in previous times would only have the masculine for some words. So there would only be one word that represented whether masculine or feminine. And of course, as the language evolved, you began to have variations. So one such word is the next word, ha. Now this ha would be the hai alaf, which is different from ha with a single letter hai, which, for example, would translate to thee. So ha in this context is ha alaf. Ha in the context of the word thee is only the single letter H or hai. Then as the variations came along, you had hua or hawa for he, and hiya or haya for she. All right. The next word we have is anachnu. Anachnu. You will see CH or KH predominantly because it is believed that the KH is more ancient than the CH, and then both were later followed by just H. So some persons you may see writing anahnu, and that is because of the pronunciation of this word. So anachnu would be what we see here, and it means we. And for some people, you may recognize this word from some of our songs. So, for example, anachnu nakaraim nakaraim bashamu. So we are called. So anachnu. So anachnu means we. Then, of course, you have the plural versions of saying the word you. So the collective pronouns, which would be atham for masculine plural, or referring to males, and athan for feminine plural, referring to a group of females. And when the groups are mixed, the masculine form always takes precedence, whether it is a group of boys and girls or a group of men and women. So the masculine always takes precedence. Same for they, group of males, ham or hama. They, a group of females, han or hana. And if the group has mixture, then the masculine takes precedence, ham or hama. Khan? Let's move along. Then we have our demonstrative pronouns. So The first one is the English word this. The masculine form would be za, za. And when we're referring to this feminine form, zath, zath. We move along. These, that is Allah. Now, some persons may have difficulty with the language because they have redounded the syllabic pronunciation of the language to which ones they would want to say versus what they do not want to say, simply because there are words that may sound like the names of other mighty ones. Now understand this, the language is the language, and because it was the language of creation, automatically various languages that follow will pick up words and meanings will eventually change. For some words, they may sound alike in the transliteration, but may have different letters in the actual grouping or order of letters in the word. Similar to when we spoke of ha, which is the hai and alaf versus only the hai, and both are pronounced ha. So it is critical to understand that the language is the language, right? So you can always decide to change it as you want, to pronounce it how you want, but it does not take away from the actual structure of the language. The language is the language. All right. So we move on to another familiar word. You may have seen this already in your notes. Hua and Hia. You saw this earlier when I explained, his and her. Well, this is a relational pronoun. So this pronoun would have taken on different meanings depending on the various contexts. And for those who have a Brown Driver Briggs lexicon, you may also reference this, the hai u alaf, hai yad alaf in there, and see the various applications of this word. So it also means that in other contexts. Again, we saw ham and han, similar to what happens with hua and hia. So we have masculine context ham or hama, feminine context han or hana, which also means those, similar to they. Then we get to independent possessive pronouns. We begin, independent possessive pronouns usually are expressed by suffixes, but can also stand alone with emphatic usage. So you remember, or you would recall, we utilized one of these. The first one, which is shali. And in our previous, not the previous lesson, but in, I believe, lesson 24, when we looked at familial and other relationships, you would recall the possessive pronoun shali being used to speak of my mother, my father, my grandmother, my aunt, my brother, my cousin, my friend, shali, where the yad was placed at the end. So here are some other possessive pronouns. So already we know shali means mine, me, my. Then we get to yours, shalak, yours, shalak. And this remained the same whether masculine or feminine. You will see in the more modern context the variation of shalaka or shalka or something of that nature. But shalak is shalak in Yahudyth. Then we get to his, shalu, shalu. Then we get to hers, shala, shala. Then we get to shalanu, which is ours, shalanu, which is ours. Then we have, of course, the group. So for a group, when you're saying yours, as in a group of individuals, you have shalakam and shalakan. Shalakam and shalakan. Then we get to theirs. We have shalaham and shalahan for theirs. I'm trying to recall if I said his and her for in the previous slide when referring to the relative pronoun for that, it's actually he and she, not his and her. I think that just popped up in my mind. So that really should be he and she, which would have shared hua and hia with that. So making that correction if I said his and her. Just looking at this slide and wondering if that's what I said. Okay, so we move along, and if the background or the audio quality is not the best, again, we are utilizing what we have available. We still have not received electricity or network connectivity and all of that as yet. So this is being pre-recorded on a phone, on a cellular phone, and then of course will be treated accordingly. So let's hope it is clear. So we get to question words, interrogative pronouns, and we have who, what, where, when, how many, how much, how, why. So to say who, the word in Yahudyth is me. Me. Now somebody may be looking at it and saying, isn't that my? No, well, the yad in Yahudyth of the 22 letters, which you know as Hebrew letters, is pronounced E. So though you see my as the transliteration, the pronunciation in Yahudyth is me and not my. So to say who, you say me. To say what, you say ma. To say where, you say ayah. Ayah. To say when, you say mathi. Mathi. To say how many or how much, or to ask how many or how much, you say kama. Kama. To ask how, similar to the name of, or the Yahudyth name for Lamentations, Ika or Aika, which means how. That's what that book means, how. So Aika is how we is the word we use to ask how. And then finally we have the word to ask why is lama, and in another context you may see madua. So lama or madua. So lama, madua. Can? Okay, let's continue. Now here's another relative pronoun which may be translated to that, which, as well as who in another context, or in various contexts. So that, which, and who in various contexts share the same pronoun ashar. Ashar. No need to worry. In lesson 27, we intend to get into some statements and questions so we may practice. But we want to take it a little at a time. So we're introducing the various pronouns and conjunctions and suffixes, and we may introduce a few prefixes in this lesson, but go a little more in detail or in depth in lesson 27 with prefixes. But we're looking at various words that you may use to form your statements and questions. Then we'll practice constructing these statements and questions as we get into lesson 27. But let's continue here in lesson 26. So we have indefinite and quantifying pronouns. So when we speak of all or every, which can be a pronoun or particle, the Yahudyth word is kal. Kal. So when you say all or every, kal. Then when we speak of one, and in another context you may see someone. So if it says there was one who went to a particular place, then that word there was one speaks of someone. So you may also see ahad being used in that or in those contexts. So ahad it means one and may also be used as someone, and this one speaks of a unified. So it may be singular, it may be speaking of unity. For example, you speak, the scripture says, so shall a man leave his arm and his ab and cling to his asha, and they two shall be ahad, shall be one. So they don't become the same person, but they become one in how they operate, in how they make decisions, in how they communicate, in how they flow. So ahad, one. Then we go to the word for a man, or somebody in various contexts. You will also see husband, and this is Aish. Aish. So you will see Aish being used in some contexts for a man. You will see it being used for husband. You will see it being used for somebody. Context decides. Finally, we have here ayin, ayin, and this would translate to there is not, or you may see no one. So there is not or no one. All right. Now, in later or post-biblical forms, words such as mishehu would mean someone or somebody. So if you're going into Google, you may see mishehu. And these are more common in modern Hebrew branch, in the modern Hebrew branch. The scriptural usage relies on context and forms such as aish, achad, kal. Okay, let's continue. So then we get to suffix pronouns, possessive slash object endings. So we're looking at how we add suffixes to the end of various words. So for example, we're using here word, and the Yahudyth for word is dabar. Dabar. So how do we say my word, your word, his word, our word, their word, etc.? So the let me get this here. I believe the device needs to be plugged in. Okay, so we got that. I think my battery was dying. So how do we place the possessive pronouns or pronoun with, for example, word? So we already have an idea of the use of shali. So we see here first person singular. We place, and of course we're looking at the Yahudyth ending column, and we're reading from right to left. So we have first here dabar with the palal or middle script plus the yad from shali equals dabari. So the transliteration you'll see there, dabari, and in English that means my word. So dabari, which is the combination of dabar and shali, or the yad from shali, gives you dabari. When we get to the second person singular word your, whether it's your masculine or your feminine, and you're talking about your word, we have dabar plus the kaf from shalak. When you place those together, you get dabarak, your word. So dabar plus the kaf from shalak, or the ending of shalak, you get dabarak. Then we get to third person singular, his word and her word. So of course his, the word for his is shalu. So again, from right to left, when we combine dabar plus the u, ending of shalu, we get dabaru, his word. Same principle applies for shala, meaning her. We have dabar plus the hai, or the ha at the end of shala, and we get dabara, dabara. Then we get to the first person plural, speaking of our word. and you get dabar plus the nu from shalanu. Of course, shalanu is hour. So you remove the nu from shalanu and you get dabaranu. Dabaranu. When you look at the second person plural, so you're as in a group of persons, we have shalakam and shalakan. So you have dabar plus kam for masculine, dabar plus kan for feminine, and your word masculine becomes dabar kam, and for feminine, dabar kan. Okay? Finally, on this whiteboard slide, we look at the third person masculine feminine plural form of saying their word. And so you have shalam and shalan. And so when we combine dabar plus the mum from shalam, or dabar plus the noon or nan from shalan, we get dabaram, masculine, plural, their word, dabaran, masculine, feminine, plural, their word. Salika, feminine, plural, their word. So this is how we combine the possessive pronouns to particular words. We move along to some prepositions. So we're looking at basic with suffixes. So these are quite common. We have the beat or baith. When it is placed at the front or before a word, it means in or at or with. It may also mean by. So in, at, with, that's b. Then we have the lam or lamad. When that is placed as a prefix before words, it means to or for, depending on the context. So l, to or for. When kaf, as in the K, as in the transliteration there, is placed before the word as a prefix, it means as or like. As or like. When the mamnun or man is placed before a word, it means from. In some contexts, you may only see the mam. Ayin lamad, which is different from alaf lamad, and we see both there, even though a transliteration may reflect, as I said earlier, the transliteration will only show the letters that are in the language that is being reflected. So whatever language we're looking at in this context, English, the letters that are the immediate relation to the Yahudyth or Hebraic letters is what you'll see. So the letter A in Latin and also in English translate from both alaf and ayin. So it is important to know which letters were used so you know which word is being referred to. So some will see al in a particular context and believe it is the same meaning because English letters are being used by virtue of transliteration, but it becomes critical to know, was an ayin or a alaf used. And so with the ayin lamad it means on, upon, or about. Context decides. And with the alaf lamad, it means to or toward. To or toward. Similar to the lamad, only l meaning to as well. We have alaf thou, which does not have a direct translation, but it's an object marker. It's usually used for emphasis. Okay, so let me pause the video right here. I recognize that there may be a little bit of confusion for some persons with regards to alaf thou, meaning you, feminine version, and alaf thou being a direct object marker with no direct translation. Some of these things don't come up when you're actually delivering the lesson until you're reflecting, or unless you're in an actual situation with persons learning and the question is asked. But it came to my mind and I thought it was important to sort of try to bring some clarity. Alaf thou meaning you, feminine singular, alaf thou being a direct object marker with no direct translation. How do you know them differently? How do you use those in examples, etc.? I did promise that we would, in lesson 27, look at some examples, but I believe it is important to help to affirm or solidify someone's bina or understanding in this part of lesson 26. So alaf thou, ath, as and I'm near a roadway, so you may hear vehicular traffic in the background, but as a direct marker, direct object marker, no particular translation for it. In its function, it tells you pretty much that the next word is the direct object of the verb. So whatever action is being done, it tells you that the next word is the direct object of that action. Let's use an example. So if I say, for example, Ani ra'a ath hanara, I see the girl. In that example, ath would have to come before a noun. Never alone and never as a subject. So here's a clue to knowing if it is a direct object. If ath is followed by a person or thing being acted upon, then it is an object marker and not you, feminine singular. In the case of feminine singular ath, it functions as a pronoun, a person, the subject of a sentence. So, what example can I use? If I say ath YaHUaH, I'm saying you are beautiful. Ath YaHUaH. So if ath is the subject or is doing the action, then ath in that context would be you. You may even say, let's say we want to say you are reading. Then we would say ath kurath. Athkurath, you are reading. That tells you that it's you and not ath as an object marker. If I would say I am reading the book, Ani Kurath Ath Hasapar, I'm reading the book. So ath as a pronoun, you, can be at the start of a statement as well. As an object marker, it does not start or begin the statement. It must come after a verb and before a noun. So let me hope that's sort of helping. Okay, if we look in scripture, for example, 2nd Malachim 4 verse 16, and it says, Uyamar lemuad hazakath kia ath chabakath ban. In other words, and he said, about this appointed time next year you shall embrace a son. So the you there, what is used is ath, you. So ath in that context is used as you. If we look at Barashit 1 verse 1, Genesis 1 verse 1, when we look at ath as a direct object marker with no actual translation, we see in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens, or the Shamayim, and the earth, or the Arats. We see ath is used in that context. It would read something like, and don't quote me, I'm just trying to remember, Barashith bara Elohim ath hashamim u'ath ha'aratz. So in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. So in that particular verse, ath has no translation. It simply marks the thing receiving the action. So it would be important to understand that. So I brought it up because I'm figuring someone in writing their notes may have some concern. So I paused the video. This particular recording with me explaining it was done after the actual teaching video. So, all right, so let's continue with the video. And most especially when it's referring to some period of time or something that Yahuwah emphasizes, you would see ath predominantly in that context, but Allah thou. So it's a direct object marker, but it does not have a specified translation, but its context dictates emphasis in particular contexts. Then we have the ayin mum, which is different from alaf mum. So ayin mum is with. So if you're saying with, you say with, under, or instead of. When you say under or you say instead of, you say thachath. Then we have here between would be bean. You may hear others saying bain. So you may see bain, or you may see bean, and that is the word for the preposition between. Of course, the word for before or in front of is lapani, lapani or lapani, lapani. Okay? All right, let's move along. We continue. When you want to say after, the word is achari, achari. Word for inside or within, you will observe the beith or baith included here. So inside or within is bathuk, bathuk. Around, the word for around is sabib, sabib. Upon me, you have the al, and of course you have what you could consider as the yad really from Shali. So you have Ali. So ain, lamad, yad. Ali, upon me. Similar principle for upon you. Ain lamad, the al with the looking at the word for you. So it's a combination really. So you may also hear persons saying upon your, coming from shalak. So al or ain lamad yad kaf alik is upon you. And then we have upon us, we have the ain lamad al yad nu, and of course the nu coming from shalanu. And we move to upon them. Remember the word ali coming from upon me. You will observe there is a trend of ali appearing in all these words. So ali ham, upon them, ali ham. Then we have al yadi, al yadi or al yidi. This is by, something that is carried by. So it's through the hand of. So by. So this was brought here by. And so the word by in that context would be al-yidi or al-yadi. Continue. In the midst of, which is pretty much the same as using inside and within. Still, of course, being carried by the beith or baith. So bathuk remains the same here. Bathuk. Then we get to above, from, upon, and that is mal, mam, ayin, lamad, mal, and that is translated in English above or from upon. And finally on this slide we have beneath, and the word for beneath is mathachath, 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 beneath. We get to another slide on prepositions. Again, I emphasize Yahudyth prepositions may either be single letter prefixes or independent words. Many attach to words directly, and some take pronominal suffixes. So let's look at some examples here, some of which we looked at earlier. So let's take beith or baith. So if we're saying in, let's use the house. So we're looking at the relation to the house. Of course, house is beith or baith. So if you're saying in house, at house, with house, you would say babith or babaith. Can? For the example of to house or for the house, you would have the lamad, so l. So you would have labith or labaith, so to the house or for the house, depending on the context. If you want to say, for example, as a king or like a king, making comparison, you would say kamalak, like a king, or as a king, kamalak. If you want to say from the house, you would say hold for me, the device. All right, need to charge. So let's continue. So where was I? So the mum. So we're saying from the house. So man often appears before certain forms as man. So you see man habayith, from the house. Man habayith. Now, prefix prepositions usually precede the noun and attach orthographically, such as the context of the letter beith plus the word for house beith or baith, which is very interesting because both the letter and the word house carry the same meanings. But so babaith or babith, when the noun is definite with the article, the ha'i, remains. The article remains, rather. The article remains. So let's say, for example, you're talking about in the name, you will say the beith plus the ha'i, and I'm looking at the lower part of the screen here, not able to point on it. Well, I'll try. Hopefully you're able to see me pointing. But the baith plus ha'i plus sham in the name would be basham rather than bahasham. So the vowel patterns would change, but the article remains. So you have basham. In unpointed text, it is written in the same way, basham. So you wouldn't write out all these letters that you see reflected, ba plus ha'i plus sham. You'd write basham, and it still carries the same meaning in the name, rather, in the name, basham. We get to our next slide, and for those who may need to pause these slides and take notes, You may need to go over this video again so that your notebooks may be populated accordingly. For those persons who are not so much into languages, and especially if you are more numerically inclined, more into numbers, this may be a little bit frustrating for persons who are especially inclined to numbers rather than words. But don't worry, take it one yom at a time, one day at a time, and you will get it. Yadah YaHUaH. So we get to prepositions with pronominal suffixes. And we are using in this particular slide only the beeth or baith. So if you are saying in me or with me, that's be. And people, again, with similar to me, which is the mam yad, which some may have pronounced as my, this is actually be, not by. So you may see by as a transliteration of the Yahudyth be, but that is because of the pronunciation of the yad. So be is in or with me. Then we get to in or with you. That would be back. Back. In or with him, boo. In or with her, ba. Do you remember the pronouns? Shali, shalak, shalu, shala, shalanu. Do you remember those? So the endings are being applied here. So ba, in or with her, banu, in or with us, bakam, in or with you, grouping. So that's plural, a collective. So it's a group of males, bakam. In or with you, grouping, group of females, collective, bakan. In or with them, baham, masculine. And bahan, in or with them, feminine. The same pattern that is used here for beeth or baith can be applied to the others that we looked at earlier. The lamad, kaf, mam, the ath, all of those may also be applied with the same principle used for the beeth or baith here when speaking of in or with. Let's practice. So here we have the word li. Do you remember what the lamad means when it is used as a preposition with pronominal suffixes? If you're looking carefully at the slide, you'll observe it means two or four. And that is a reminder because we looked at all of them earlier. 2 or 4. So remember, we just looked at be, back, boo, ba, and we're looking at all of those with the baith. Do you remember, based on the endings here, what li, for example, would mean? Let's practice. If you said 2 or 4 me, you are correct. So if li is 2 or 4 me, bearing in mind the l or the lamad means 2 or 4, what would lak be? 2 or 4 your. Khan, looking at shalak. Then lu would be 2 or 4 him. What would la mean? And this la, notice, is different from la, which of course would mean no. This is different. So what would la in this context with the lamad, and of course you have the ha'i at the end, to or for her. Lanu would be to or for us. Lakam, to or for you. And of course you could pause the video so that you can guess the others, and then as we go through you may tick if you got it correct. Lakan, to or for you, of course grouping, collective, feminine. Laham, to or for them, collective. Lahan, to or for them, masculine and feminine representations here. We're coming down in a wonderful way. So here we have conjunctions. Conjunctions. So I know some persons are going to use their pronouns and prepositions and their suffixes, etc. And they want some conjunctions as well. So you may go and practice on your own even ahead of our next lesson to write some statements, to write some questions, because you also received the interrogative pronoun, so you know the question words. But here we have conjunctions. So we have the letter U, which in English means and. U means and. Then we get to alaf U, au, which means or. Then we get to alaf mam, which means if. So that's am, which means if. And remember, I did say do not confuse it with ayin mam, which we looked at earlier. So this one is alaf mam. And if you remember or recall, ayin mam, what does that mean? If you look back at your notes, you should see with. So ayin mam is with, but alaf mam is if. Hey, those sort of sound alike, don't they? So with ayin mam, if alaf mam. This is why it's so important to also write the correct script, correct Yahudyth script, which is the middle script, so you know what the transliteration really is referring to, so you don't get confused with which one is if and which one is with. Let's continue. We have the kaf yad, or the word ki, which translates as because or that or for. So the conjunction ki in various contexts can mean because or that or for. Then we get to the word therefore, which in Yahudyth is lakan, lamad, kaf, nun, or lamad, kaf, nan. That's therefore, lakan. But is abal, and that's the alaf, bith, lamad, but. Also or even we have gam, gamal mam, gam, thus or therefore or so. We have al kan, ayin lamad, al, and kan, which of course is the kaf and the nun. So al kan, thus or therefore or so. Lest, you would see this also in scripture, lest, and that is the word pan, lest. Even though in English would be represented as up key, up key, up key. And that's the alaf pai, up, and the kaf yad, key. Until would be ain dalat, so that's ad. Until, ad. Then we get to as long as, or until, and that's ad ki, ad ki. Of course, ain dala, kaf yad, and so you have here ad ki, as long as or until. Then we get to laman, which is the lamad, letter lamad, mam, or the letters lamad, mam, ain, and nun or nan. And that is the word laman, which translates to so that, or in order that. Then we get to however, which is reflected as aulam, however, aulam. And finally, we have when or as, and you may see kashar, which is kalaf, which is, I was about to say kalaf, kaf, alaf, shan, rash, and you may also see the kaf and the shan, kaf and the shan. So kashar or kash, and that is when or as, when or as. Wow, so what a lesson, packed with information for you to go ahead and practice, to write out some statements, write out some questions, even ahead of our next lesson. So we're looking forward to lesson 27. We're at lesson 26. So lesson 27, where we would look a little more detailed into prefixes used in the ancient context. Of course, all these words used to describe them, conjunctions, prepositions, pronouns, would not have existed at that time. But we use those words to describe based on our context. Now we know what they mean, so we use them to describe these groups of words. But we will also, in lesson 27, aim to practice writing some statements, some questions. It would have been even more meaningful if we were in a physical space and able to write them out, on the board and in our books, and to discuss and to have, robust talks on various statements or questions which we would have formed. Nevertheless, Toda Rabba, thank you so much for joining another lesson. Was not very easy delivering this one, given the resource constraints and network constraints and all of that. But I am trusting that you are able to hear clearly, you're able to see the slides clearly. If there are any technical glitches or anything that is not flowing as it ought to, please bear with us, as I tried as best as possible to use what we had to combine them, so that even in the midst of waiting for network connectivity and for the power to be turned back on post the Hurricane Melissa, we had to still get something going so that the Mashpaka, we would remain connected in some way. Toda Rabba for your continued supplications to the Most High Yahuwah. Continue to palal for us. as Yahuwah continues to keep us and watch over us. And we will see you, Yahuwah's will, in the next lesson and other lessons that are presented on this channel. Bear with us. Sometimes the lessons do take some time because it takes time to prepare. It takes time to put together, and we're doing so many other lessons, and we're doing songs, and we're doing all sorts of things. We're responding to questions and research and a whole lot of things happening in the background in addition to full-time jobs and all of that. Nevertheless, we are so grateful for those who have continued with us, even for those who have been with us even from the beginning of this channel's institution, or when we started. We're grateful, and we of course are grateful even for those who are actively part of this ministry's work in the Nazarene of Yahuwah. See you for lesson 27. Yadah YaHUaH.
Remember to purchase your copy of the Learning YaHUaH Family Workbook on Amazon. Look down in the description for the link. Yadah YaHUaH for viewing.
Shalom Mashpaka. Yadah, thank you for viewing and participating. Remember to share the video with others, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell.
Don't forget to grab your copy of the book Strides of Triumph, A Guide to Empowered Living. Also the book Mindful Mastery, Navigating Realities with Awareness. Both are on Amazon. Please see all links in the description below. We are very grateful for those who supported this ministry's work. Yadah YaHUaH. Remember to leave a review for these books. It goes a far way.
We are the Nazarene of Yahuwah.
And of course we say Yadah YaHUaH, which means
One love.
And we thank all our viewers and subscribers, all the family of the Most High, for viewing today's presentation. So remember to smash that like button
Subscribe to the channel
and hit that notification bell so that you may be alerted every time we upload.